Hey, what's up? What's up?
All your favorite artists
Check it out.
Say my name.
DJ Khaled.
This is Mila J.
Bruno Mars.
on hot1025fm.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's your main man, 360, the poet from the Morning Wood, and I'm here to talk to you about the Sci-Fi Center. It's your Vegas home for science fiction, horror, and fantasy. From comic books, toys, and posters to movie screenings and live events, they've got you covered. Located at 900 Karen Avenue, Suite B209, give them a call, 702-900-4335, or reach them at thescificenter.com.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. How y'all doing today? How y'all doing? I hope y'all having a good week. Mine's been okay for the most part. Can't really complain. Work has been good. My career has been nice. I gotta say, I am really getting, I'm liking the one job thing. I won't lie. It's it's pretty cool. More time with the kids, more time for myself, more, more time to just kind of do what I want to do, what I have fun doing. It's pretty cool. It will take some time getting used to it because it gives me a lot of free time. I like to call it on my hands. That's why I spend so much time with my kids. I make sure if I got a lot of free time, they're gonna get as much of it as they can. For sure, for sure. But I got to find what to do with the time that I don't have them, because I just be looking around like I'm a caveman or something. I know back then in the past, I would always have something going on. So whether I was working or not, I always had something to do, something happening. But, I don't like being in the streets no more. I like standing on the sidewalks. I just like seeing what happens. I don't want to be in the streets. I just like watching the dramatics. I don't want to be involved in no way, shape, or form. That way, when I walk away from it, I'm done with it. I don't have to deal with it. I don't know how y'all can do it still. I can't do it. I personally, I'm sorry. I would rather sit in my comfort of my own home instead of, you know, dealing with the streets. It's dangerous out there for y'all. I hope y'all careful out there, man. It's dangerous. Looks like y'all having a good time though, but couldn't be me. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Other than that, in this past week, I don't really think there's too much per se to really talk about. There hasn't really been much that has happened or to discuss, other than the fact that I'm just trying to figure out this whole dealing with one job situation. It's kind of hard when you are used to working. I've been working my whole life, like as soon as I started working, I always had at least one to two jobs, mainly two at least. So now going down to one is just crazy. But I like that I'm giving myself a break. Hey, I feel better. I'm getting more rest. I'm having more, I feel lighter, I feel relieved. I feel good, I feel good. So I can't lie. I'm not mad about it. I'm just not used to it. But growth is always uncomfortable. So I'll get there one way or another. I'll get there one way or another. But other than that, in this past week, I really just don't have too much more to say. I think that was pretty much it that really happened. I'm trying to make sure I really didn't forget because I tend to forget stuff, and I don't mean to, but I'll just be. Oh, see, I did forget something. So I went to the Marlon Wayans comedy show Saturday night, and I got to meet him. I got to take a picture. It was a meet and greet. It was pretty cool. Marlon's a funny guy. I didn't know that I was, a little taller than Marlon. It ain't that much. It's like 2 inches, barely. But I always thought Marlon and Sean. I know Sean's taller than me for sure. No, actually, from what I look up, me and Sean are about the same height. But Sean always looked like he was about 6'3", 6'4", and he's actually 6'2". I didn't know that. Didn't know that. But it was a great experience at the comedy show. It was nice. It was at the MGM. It was a great time, and it was pretty cool to be able to do something like that. I don't really go out much these days. I don't really venture out these days. So to get outside the four walls twice in the same week was just kind of challenging, but it was cool. It was nice. I needed to. It was pretty fun. It was fun for sure. Does that mean I will go back to that every weekend? No, not at all. I'm sorry, I can't do that. It was fun, but I don't want to make it consistent. I like the simple life I live. Make it easy, get things done, grow at the rate that I need to. Try to. I can't rush everything. You know what I mean? So, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not into going out like that every weekend no more. Now, if we want to go out to do like museums or like an art show or things like that, hey, I'm down to do that every weekend, every other weekend, whatever the case may be. But going out and going to the club, we went to Gold Spike Friday for they were supposed to have a 2000s R&B, a 2000s night. But I'm gonna be honest, ain't no, I didn't. It didn't look like nobody else dressed for the occasion. I wish I should have took a picture, because everybody was like, and I'm like, well, I thought it was 2000s night. Maybe I'll find the outfit, put it back on, and take a picture and post it or something. But nobody else showed up. But that whole club scene and partying and drinks spilling everywhere, like that would get on my nerves after one or two times going. So yeah, I'm good. Lounges, things like that, things that are chill, relaxed, calm. I'm okay with that. But I just don't want to. I don't want to go out and party every weekend again. I'm sorry, I cannot do it. Last week we did talk about things like letting go, moving on. When is the time to do it, how to approach it. When do you really say, hey, I just give up? Whatever it may be, when do you just really say it? And I kind of asked a couple of questions at the end of the show, but there's a few things that I didn't really get to. The first question I did ask was the have you ever stayed too long in a relationship? I think that was the first one. And I think almost all of us, I would say, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, but almost all of us have, whether we admit it or not, right? But the bigger question isn't if you've stayed too long, it's why you stayed, right? Was it because you love them? Because we know if you love somebody, hey, you're gonna love makes you do some crazy things. It happens. Or was it because you love the memories, right? Was it either or? Was it because you believe they would change, or because you were afraid to start over? Now, sometimes we don't fall in love with the person anymore. We fall in love with who they used to be, right? We hold on to the older version of them and keep waiting for that version to just come back. Like someday that version will be back where I want, what I want. But at what point does hope become denial, right? Like, how long is too long? Is it measured in months, years, or by the amount of peace you've lost? Because I think if there are some things that may bother you, I think you may stay longer for those smaller things that are tedious versus something big. Like, you may not like the way somebody chew, but you could probably deal with that for about a year for you. Like, okay, you know what? It's just enough. I've been eating with you 5 days out the week. I can't do this no more, right? But at that point, it's not like he's had you let finding out he's got another baby on the way every week, or they got another child on the way every week. Then at that point, you would look at it and be like, well, this is why I can't stay, because obviously, um, I'm not gonna just. First of all, I don't know who's gonna stay for a baby anyway, right? Let's just be honest. There are certain variables and circumstances I understand that may play a part or a factor, but let's just talk about the general input of a girl. Nothing is going wrong, but you found out that he got another baby on the way, or she pregnant with somebody else's kid. There's there's a small chance, very small chance, that somebody's going to stay in that situation. Um, Logically speaking, right? That's what I mean by how long do you stay? Is it constant disrespect that you're receiving from that relationship? Is it constant? What do you want to call it? Dismissing of your feelings. What is it that's causing you to stay so long? Is it a reason that you're like, hey, you know what, I can deal with this, but for how long, right? um but I say that because one of the things that sorry, me and the fellas, we get together every week, y'all. We all have conversations. Me and a few of my friends, no matter who it is, we conversate with. My brother was part of the conversation this week about something too, so that was kind of cool. But pretty much, the whole thing with that was they figured when you say, "Have you ever stayed too long in a relationship?" They don't like that verbiage because it's like, I don't want to say too long because I stayed long enough to try everything I could to make it work. So it's not like I stayed too long. I stayed long enough to try it, to put my effort in, and then to walk away. But what another friend said, which man, the back and forth is nice because it's healthy. The response to that was, well, what happens if it is too long? Like, what if it's in the case of, you know, you have tried it all, you have tried everything, or what if the case is they just don't respect it? They just don't respect you. So no matter what you're going to try, you can see that the respect isn't there, so it's never going to get resolved. So you can try A through Z, already knowing that A through Z will not work because they looking for the number one. To be frank about it, which is a great fight to it, because it's like, well, what if I'm trying everything I can before I choose to walk away? And the other one is like, what if everything you're trying isn't enough and you need to walk away sooner? What if you already know that anything you will try is not going to be enough? If somebody can give you signs or tell you that there's just some things that you cannot do to make it work, hey, I think it's just time to say, you know what? It's time to walk away. It's time to leave. There are different ways and different signs you can see and tell when it may be time to actually walk away versus it being something detrimental to you versus something being detrimental to the relationship, if that makes sense, right? Versus something that's going to harm you personally or something that's just going to damage an already broken relationship, right? Or maybe a relationship that can be fixed. You never really know. But I don't think, again, I don't think that a relationship will usually end overnight. I think we can all agree there that most end after months or years of ignored warning signs, right? The communication starts fading, the effort becomes one-sided, respect starts disappearing. You stop looking forward to seeing each other, conversations become arguments, man, so on and so forth. You apologies become routine instead of meaningful, or promises become repeated instead of fulfilled. And then you got, sometimes the biggest warning sign is that you become emotionally exhausted from explaining the same thing over and over again. No Nelly or Tim McGraw on that one, but you know what I mean. How many chances should someone get before accountability becomes more important than patience? Because I think the biggest thing to it all is, how long do you try to hold somebody accountable for the actions they take against you before you just be like, you know what, they just not gonna do it? Or on their end, how long do you give them before you try to allow them to take accountability? Before you just say, you know what, it is what it is. I don't need it. That was confirmation there. That was confirmation there. And then a lot of people go into and say, well, okay, every breakup doesn't have to be a bad breakup. Every situation doesn't have to be a traumatic or leaving it in a bad way. Um, and I would love to be friends after the breakup. And ah, that's a very packaged topic, right? About being friends after the breakup, because I think the answer is sometimes you can. Sometimes there is an ability to have a friendship after the relationship is over. Sometimes maybe y'all will realize that the friendship is a better option in the long run anyway. But it depends on why the relationship ended as well, right? Because if there was mutual respect, honesty, and acceptance, then maybe you're good. Maybe you're okay, right? But if there was betrayal, if there was manipulation, abuse, or constant disrespect, then the friendship might not be healthy. It just may not be there for you, right? We also have to ask ourselves another question. Are we really friends, or are we keeping each other close because neither one of us has fully let go? Because that's a real difference. That's a big difference for it. Sometimes you will hold on to a person hoping that things will go back to the way they will, or hoping for another chance. And maybe that other person is at that point where they're like, you know what? You shouldn't hold your breath on that, meaning that's not going to ever happen. But it does. It does. It does. It does. Now, should family members be held to higher standards or given more grace? Before I say my spiel, I'm going to tell y'all, I believe that listen, it always starts a debate whenever we talk about this, because everybody has family held up on such a high pedestal, right? Some people say family deserves unlimited grace. Others say family should actually treat you better than strangers, right? Here's where I stand. Grace should exist, but accountability should exist as well. I want them to go hand in hand with this. Being family shouldn't become a free pass to repeatedly disrespect someone. That's not cool. That's not game, right? Love doesn't remove the responsibility. And it definitely doesn't erase the consequences just because of a title that you family. No, no. Healthy families will apologize, they will communicate. And healthy families, they will respect boundaries with each other. They're not going to keep repeatedly ignoring them and stepping over the other person's boundary. That's just not how we roll. A healthy family will be a lot better than that for you. You got to think about it like this. Would you let, or how about this question? How about this? Should blood create obligation or should respect determine access? Right? Because in my mind, when we talk about that, I do know that you're a sibling or a family member or a relative, whatever you want to call yourself. I know it full on in hand. What I also know is that you need to respect me the way I'm going to respect you. Respect plays an important factor here because you are family. I may give you an extra pass on something I wouldn't give a stranger, but that's just one extra pass. I'm not about to dilly daddle and do this and move around and beat around the bush when I know I could be direct with you as family. I will always approach family in a respectful way. But if I feel like you're being disrespectful in any way, shape, or form, I'm gonna correct you once and only once. And I get you can ask any one of my family members to this day. I'm gonna give you one chance and correct you after that one chance. After that, I'm not even gonna tell you you cut off. You're just gonna try to call me one day and be blocked. You're gonna try to reach out to me and can't get a hold of me, no access. I don't play those games. Respect is a huge factor. I'm saying that because I want us to get out of that mindset of that no matter what family does to us, we got to forgive them and let go. Because even family should have limits too. They need to know their place just like the next person do. And the fact that you know me better than the next individual means you should know better on how I operate. And that's why you got to hold family to a higher standard to me in a way is because family will know what buttons to press and they'll still do it, knowing what the reaction is, and they'll still do it. But you want me to walk on thin lines with you because of a title? No, because you know better and you still did it is why I will be more firm with you about it. That's why you will receive a worse consequence than the next person about it. Is because you knew better and you still did it. I love my family. I love them to death. I can also love them from a distance. Respect is huge. And if you can't respect me, no problem. We'll just stay away from each other. As simple as that. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. What's the difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice in that case? And in general with it. This is huge. Loyalty says, I stand beside you while we work through problems together. Okay? Self sacrifice says, I keep hurting myself so you never have to change. Those are not the same thing. Nowhere near. Real loyalty should be mutual. If only one person is sacrificing, that's not loyalty anymore. That's imbalance. Nothing about that is right. You know? You have to, how do I say it like this? They say blood ain't thicker than water, right? But I say loyalty means more to me. Loyalty and respect means more to me than blood, right? Because as we just talked about, blood don't have a problem disrespecting you because they family and they feel like they can get away with it. But a person that's loyal to you, a person that respects you, like a good saying I like to say is, I'd rather you respect me than to love me. Because if you love me, you could kill me, right? Depending on what the situation may be, you could kill me out of love. It's not love itself, but because you love me so much, your actions towards me or whatever it may be, your emotions may flare up, but you can kill me out of that, from loving me. Versus respecting me, you wouldn't, or being loyal to me, you wouldn't want to see anything bad happen to me, no harm to come to me. Even if that means you were the one to cause it, you wouldn't even want to see that happen. You would try to do everything you can to avoid it. So I would prefer to be respected, you know, than to be loved. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, my children, of course, I want them to love me. I'm their peer. They gonna love and respect me. I know that's what they're gonna come from there. But anybody on the streets, like, I don't need you to love me. I got plenty of love around, obviously. I just need respect. That's it. I would rather be respected. Um, I gotta remember that. I'll remember the quote by the time this is over. But I got a quote for that. Now another one is: have you ever quit a job and immediately felt relief? Like you just felt like the sunshine and everything coming down on you, the gates of heaven and opening up. Like, the feeling when you finally leave a toxic workplace and suddenly your anxiety just drops. You like, I can breathe. And that's not laziness, right? That's your body responding to peace. Money matters, bills matter. I know that part. I know responsibilities matter. I get that. But so does your mental health. Because if we only go around worried about everything else, but we would be worse off than we are now, man. I'm telling you, we can't be like that. If your paycheck costs your peace every single day, and I mean every single day, eventually you'll have to ask yourself whether the price is too high, right? Is your peace worth that paycheck that you're getting, the amount that it is, or is it worth you want to go find something else? Because how much of your happiness are you willing to trade for a paycheck? I really don't want to trade none of my happiness for a paycheck. I'd rather be able to go ahead and be happy and get a paycheck and have both, not one or the other. I'm sorry. That's why I'm loving what I do now. I'm loving my job, so I don't feel like I go to work every day. I'm just saying. Another good question though is forgiveness required for healing? And I know it sucks to say this, but it is. I think it is. I think in order to truly heal and move on, like, I can forgive you for what you did. I can forgive everything about it. Does that mean I have to forget that you did it and forget how it made me feel? Not at all. Absolutely not. But I can forgive you for it so I can still move on with my life and process it and keep my life going the way I want it to be. Because if me moving forward is me healing and being and letting it go, how am I going to heal from it if I can't even bring it up without thinking of the fact like, I don't even care about that anymore. I'll let that go. It will create its own room in your head because you haven't let it go. And then at that point, you want to heal from it, but you still have that little bit of, whether you want to call it bitterness, spite, regret, remorse, resentment, whatever it is, you have it there and you haven't let it go yet. So you're not really healed all the way because that one little thing is your trigger to open up that box again. Everything you put in that big old box and locked up with, I got the key. I got the key to get it open. That's all it's gonna take. That's all it's gonna take. So I think forgiveness is often misunderstood. Honestly, I think when it comes to forgiveness, it doesn't mean pretending nothing happened, right? It doesn't mean rebuilding trust, and it doesn't mean allowing someone back into your life. Sometimes forgiving simply means refusing to let what happened continuing to control you, right? Healing can begin before reconciliation ever does. But sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is forgive and still keep your distance. Forgive, but don't forget. That's all I say about it. It's that simple and easy. And this one is going to catch a couple of people off guard. Just a couple of people off guard. It caught me off guard because I was just like, yeah, you know, like, how do you know you've reached your point of no return? That point of I just can't go back. Well, again, I don't think it all happens at once. Like, it's gradual. One day you stop arguing, then one day you stop explaining, then one day you stop hoping, then one day you stop crying, and then eventually you just stop caring. People often think anger means someone is finished, and I disagree wholeheartedly. Indifference usually comes after anger. So when someone no longer has the energy to fight for the relationship, that may be the true point of no return. It just may be. Sometimes you want to ignore it, don't want to accept it, but I'm here to tell you right now, it don't matter if you don't want to accept it and you want to ignore it. You have to. You're going to have to. You're going to have to. All right. Have you ever outgrown a friendship? Like growth changes people. Sometimes two people grow together and sometimes they just grow apart, right? The that doesn't always mean someone was wrong. Sometimes your priorities change, your goals change, your habits change, and your environment changes. That's pretty much what can happen. And eventually you realize that friendship only works if you become the version of yourself you work so hard to leave behind, right? Growth shouldn't require shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable. I like that because I need people to realize that you don't have to stay around somebody that's dragging you down. If somebody refuses to grow as a person, you do not have to keep yourself attached to them in no way, shape, or form. Even with family, I'm telling y'all, you have to learn to let go and let God. I'm telling you, he will let them deal with themselves so you don't have to because you can't change them. You can't. Some people you have to let be themselves. So if you no longer see yourself being in an environment with them of toxicity or them doing bad habits that you don't approve of anymore, then walk away from them. That's okay. It is all right to walk away from them. You need to. If you are becoming a different person, become a different person on your own and let them see that. Maybe you'll be motivation for them to walk away as well. Don't enable it because at that point you're just enabling it, if you ask me. And remember, don't be afraid to choose yourself. You are not wrong for choosing yourself when it benefits you. You are not wrong for that, right? And what that actually looks like is people here choose yourself, and sometimes they think it means becoming selfish. You don't necessarily have to come become selfish in order to choose yourself. Choosing yourself might look like you saying no without apologizing. Hey, you know what? I can't do that. I'm sorry. But instead of you saying, hey, no, I can't do that. Oh, I just can't. Or leaving environments that constantly drain you, or going to therapy, or setting boundaries, walking away from disrespect, or resting without guilt, prioritizing your mental health, breaking unhealthy cycles, saying, I love you, but I can't keep doing this. Choosing yourself isn't about hurting other people. It's about finally acknowledging that your well-being matters as well. It just don't matter if they okay. What about you? And are you okay? Now let me stop. What about you? Are you okay? Can you talk about that? It doesn't matter for you. You see what I mean? I went over that because sometimes the life you're paying for is built by the choices you make today. Okay. Um, whether you driving home from work, whether you're sitting in your living room, whether you're lying in bed trying to figure life out, or maybe you're clocking into another shift wondering how much longer you can keep doing the same thing. I just want to thank you for being here. Okay. All right. Because listen, I believe every single person needs to hear this, not because it's easy, but because it's honest. The again, the life you're paying for is built by the choices you make today. And I want you to really think about that. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when life gets easier, but today. Just think about that for a second, okay? Um, you know what's interesting is that most people spend more time praying for change than preparing for it, right? Now, don't misunderstand me. I believe in prayer. I believe in God every single prayer, and I believe He hears every single prayer. I also believe miracles happen. I believe doors open that no man can really shut. But I also believe God expects us to move, right? Because faith without action, I think we all know this, is just hope standing still or sitting still. How many times have you prayed for peace but kept entertaining chaos? You prayed for this person to leave your life and to be done with them and God to help you through it. But as soon as they called, you pick up the phone. How many times? Right? How many times have you prayed for better relationships while refusing to communicate differently? Hmm? How many times have you prayed for financial freedom but continue spending money on things you knew you didn't need? How many times have you actually asked God to remove toxic people only to keep answering their phone calls? See? Sometimes God is not saying no. Sometimes he's saying, I already gave you the answer. Sometimes it's more of, I gave you a choice on which route you wanted to take from a problem you brought to me. God's like, oh, it's a problem? Well, here are the options. How you gonna solve it? You know what I mean? And then we keep picking the wrong thing and going back to God like, hey, God, it's me again. Same problem, different day. And God's like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And we wondering why. It's because no, he's telling you, I've been gave you the answer. I've been told you what you should do. Now it's up to you to actually follow through and do what I need you to do to move forward. And sometimes, again, we just don't want to do that. We choose the bad routes instead. We choose the other options. And then we go back to God wondering why we still in the same place we in. He'll tell you why. I was like, remember that last conversation? I told you what to do. You didn't take my answer. You didn't take my advice, is what happened, is what he probably said. Now I think one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves, though, is when the time is right, or when I have the money or more money, when my kids get older, when I lose weight, when they apologize, or when everything lines up. But can I tell you something? Life doesn't wait. Life does not wait. Opportunities does not wait. Time definitely doesn't wait. And neither does regret. So one day you'll wake up, right? You wake up, 5 years have passed. You're like, where'd that go to? Then you wake up again, 10 years have passed. And suddenly you asking yourself, what happened? What's going on with life right now? And the truth is, nothing happened. You just never made that final decision on some choices that you wanted to partake or wanted to be involved in. I personally have realized that I have to stop procrastinating and on waiting on those what ifs and what to do, when to do, when to move. Because honestly, it pushes me back so much to get things done. My own personal procrastination has held me back from movement, from climbing higher up the ladder I could be on. And I will admit that because I'm working on it and I'm doing better with it. I can admit that. Is it gonna be done overnight? No, it won't be. But I had to stop allowing myself to hold me back. That most people look at you and say, mm, I don't really think, I don't really think this is you because you're trying to change and do better. I had to realize that it didn't matter what, just like with most other things in my life, I don't really care what other people think. And I had to realize that the validation that they were wanting to give me, I didn't need it. I didn't need that validation because I had already validated it myself. So since I had already validated it myself, there was nothing to really worry about. Now, with that again, one thing I've learned in my own life, growth rarely feels good while it's happening, and everybody celebrates the transformation, but nobody will celebrate the process, and people will clap for just the success, right? But they didn't see the sleepless nights. They didn't see it. They didn't see the anxiety. They don't see the anxiety or didn't see it at all. They don't see the therapy sessions. They don't see the heartbreak. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see the moments where they questioned everything. They just see who you became. Can I ask you something tonight? What are you waiting for? Seriously, what are you waiting for? What is it? Are you waiting for permission? Are you waiting for somebody to finally tell you you're good enough? Because if that's what you're waiting for, you might be waiting forever. Some people will never understand your vision because God didn't give it to them. They weren't supposed to understand it, they were supposed to witness it. I remember hearing someone say, the cemetery is the richest place on earth. And at first I thought, that's a strange thing to say, especially because I work for a funeral home. Then they explained it. Inside cemeteries are businesses that were never started, books that were never written, songs that were never recorded, dreams that were never pursued, conversations that were never had, apologies that were never spoken, and love that was never expressed. Now, potential buried, not because people weren't talented, but because they waited, right? And I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me. I don't want us to become experts at imagining lives we never had the courage to live. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you know I don't pretend to have everything figured out. I've shared pieces of my journey with you. I've talked about loss, about disappointment, about relationships, about fatherhood, about mental health, about walking away from things that no longer serve me. None of those decisions were easy. Sometimes doing what's best for you feels like disappointing someone else. And sometimes choosing peace means walking away from people who only know how to create chaos. Sometimes choosing yourself feels selfish until you realize you spent years choosing everybody else. There's a difference between being selfish and finally deciding to stop abandoning yourself. That's a lesson I had to learn. And maybe somebody listening tonight needs to hear it too. Here's another question. How many of us keep asking God to change our circumstances when He's trying to change our character? Because here's the truth, if your character doesn't grow with your opportunities won't last. If your discipline doesn't grow with your income, you'll lose the income. If your wisdom doesn't grow with your influence, the influence can become a burden instead of a blessing. Growth isn't just about getting more, it's about becoming more. One thing I admire about trees, you never see them arguing with the seasons. When it's time to bloom, they gonna bloom. When it's time to shed leaves, they let them fall. Imagine if trees held on to dead leaves forever. There'd never be room for new growth. Some of us are trying to grow while refusing to release what has already died. Old habits, old relationships, old fears, old versions of ourselves. You can't keep everything and expect to become someone new. Sometimes growth sounds like goodbye. Sometimes it sounds like see you later. Sometimes it sounds like I'm just done. But growth is going to be different and uncomfortable. I want everybody listening tonight to think about this question. If your life looks exactly the same 1 year from today, would you honestly be happy? Not what you tell Facebook, not what you tell your coworkers, not what you tell your family, but you. Would you be satisfied? If the answer is no, then something has to change. Because hope alone doesn't create change. Your choices do. They will always create the change. Now, I do want to talk about one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck, and it has nothing to do with money, talent, or opportunity. It has everything to do with comfort, you know, everything to do with comfort, everything to do with comfort. Now, actually, oh, so you know what? Actually, that'll be a good thing to run into to start with for the run on topic for next week. Sorry. So look, I want I want to leave everyone with this thought. Um, Not every ending is a failure, right? Sometimes an ending is evidence that you finally learned your worth. Sometimes moving on is painful. Sometimes letting go feels like grief. Sometimes walking away breaks your heart. But staying somewhere that constantly breaks your spirit isn't strength, it's survival. Here's what I want you to think about today. If nothing changed in your current situation, not next week, not next month, and not next year, would you still choose it? Because if your answer is no, maybe the real question isn't whether it's time to let go. Maybe the question is, what are you waiting for? Okay. All right. Just sleep with that. When we come back next week, we're gonna talk more about it. We're gonna get that going. But I appreciate y'all every single week for coming out listening to me, man. I thank y'all so much for coming to talk with your boy. Here on the hottest radio station on the planet, Of course, it's your boy Juss Quanni, and you can catch me again next Wednesday here on the hottest radio station, Hot 702.5 FM. Peace, love, and hair grease. Again, I'll catch y'all next week.